أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Inshallah, today we are going to cover some finer points regarding the pointing asma. So without further ado, inshallah, let's get on with the lesson. And of course, as always, before beginning the lesson, we are going to ask for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rabbi Yassir, wala tu'assir, wa tamim bil khair, amin ya rabbal alameen. Alright, so first things first. What's an ism ishara? It's the pointing noun, and being a noun, it tells us that it has four properties that an ism has. Okay, so what are those four properties or four characteristics about an ism? Those four characteristics include the grammatical gender, all right, and it also includes the number, whether it's wahid, musanna, or jama. Then we also have its status, whether it's marfa or nakra. However, being a pointing noun, it is always marfa. Okay, and finally it's i'rab, so it's either going to be rafa, nasab, or jar. Okay, and the thing that gets pointed at is called musharun ilayh. Okay, so these were our terminologies. Okay, and we covered the asma ishara in the previous lesson with a detailed commentary. So without revising those points, of course we don't need to because we already have a separate lesson for them. I would just like to revise these words with a little tip. Okay, so as you can see, we have the Arab here. Alright, so we have Rafa, Nasab, and Jar, and we have the near asma with pink, and the far asma ishara with purple. Okay, and we have the grammatically masculine, feminine, and then this is for wahid, and then for musanna, jama. Same structure is followed over here. Okay, all right, so the asma that are near, first of all we have the one for singular, haza, or hazihi. Okay, haza is for masculine and hazihi is for feminine. All right, and it means this. Okay, then we have hazani, hazaini, hazaini. All right, so these are for musanna masculine, and for musanna feminine we have hatani, hataini, hataini. Notice how this the sound gets replaced with the sound, okay, to denote that it is feminine, grammatically feminine. Okay, and finally we have haulai for all the jama asma, asma ishara. All right, so whether it's masculine or feminine, it's haulai. Okay, now one thing that I hope you have noticed here is that all the asma ishara that point towards the asma that are near, okay, they all begin with ha sound. Haza, haza, haza. All right, so you can see all of these are with ha. Okay, so how can you remember this? Simply remember that the ism or the musharun ilay, which is near, means that it is here. So ha in English, all right, is equal to ha for the asma ishara in Arabic. Okay, so all the asma ishara that begin with ha are actually going to point towards the musharun ilay, which is near. Okay, so we have this, both of these, all of these. All right, and then we have the asma ishara that point towards the musharun ilay, that is far away. So there, you could say. So we have zalika, 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 tilka, 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 zanika, zainika, zainika, tanika, tainika, tainika, and then ulaika for jama, masculine and feminine. All right, so this is what. Okay, now these are the finer points that inshallah we are going to cover in this lesson. Don't get too intimidated by this summary chart because we are going to actually study it after completing our lesson. Okay, so it may seem a bit too busy right now with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points over here, but really we are just going to condense this entire thing, this entire concept in only 4 points. Okay, inshallah. So let's begin. First of all, our pointer number 1, that the musharun ilayh and the ism ishara have identical characteristics of an ism. So just to revise it once again, what are the 4 characteristics of an ism? We have the grammatical gender, we have i'rab, we have its number, and we have its status. Alright, so we have already established that all the asma ishara are marfa by default. Marfa. Alright, and so therefore that's done. Okay, we have one domain covered already. Then we are left with these 3. Okay, uh, grammatically it can be either feminine or masculine, and we have already covered that in the table that we just saw. Okay, so have been these 2 points. Okay, so these are the 4 characteristics of an ism that must be identical in musharun ilayh and the ism ishara. Okay, so that's how you can determine if the pointer is exactly what exactly is the pointer pointing at. Okay, what is the musharun ilayh? Usually they're inseparable, so it doesn't really make any difference. You're just going to know what it is. You just have to make you just have to be careful when you are making these fragments. Okay, so that's what you need to be careful about. Okay, so let's study a couple of examples. We have hazanil kitabani. Okay, this ani sound tells us 2 things. First of all, that it is musanna and that it is rafa. Similarly, al-kitabani, the 2 books. Okay, ani sound once again, it tells us that it is rafa and that it is musanna. Okay, what else do we know? We know that grammatically the word book in Arabic is masculine. Alright, so we can see that the masculine pointer has been used. Okay, and well, both of since this is marfa, this is also marfa. Okay, so you see the musharun ilayh and the ism ishara are in accordance to each other when it comes to the characteristics of an ism. That's what we can observe here. Okay, both of these books. Okay, actually it is both of these 2 books. All right, but in English the word both serves the purpose of showing that it is actually 2 in number. Okay, so both of these books is correct in English grammar, but when you translate it, it is actually 2 books. Okay, word to word. Okay, next example. Inna tainikal bintaini. Okay, so I hope you remember inna, and I hope that you remember what inna means and what it does. It's a harf nasab that causes its ism to be in nasab form, which we can observe here. Tainika. Okay, so tanika, tainika, tainika, remember from the table that we did just now. Okay, so this is your feminine pointer. How do we know that? Because of this the sound. Okay, and secondly, because, well, we have the musharun ilayh, which is actually feminine. Okay, bintaini, the 2 girls, al bintaini, the 2 girls. All right, so inna tainikal bintaini, indeed both of those girls are. All right, now it's those girls and not these girls. Why? Because tainika is the pointer for asma, for the musharun ilayh that are far away, so tainika. Otherwise it would have been hataini. Remember the ha sound for here objects, for the objects that are here. Okay, all right, so we can once again observe that um, these things, these musharun ilayh and this ism ishara, they are musanna. How do we know that? We know it due to this sound, tiny tiny. Okay, and both of these are musanna, yes, and they are marfa by default. All right, so the ism ishara is marfa by default. Okay, and of course this is marfa because of this al. Then of course this is nasab. Why is this nasab? This is nasab because this ism ishara is nasab. Why is this ism ishara nasab? Because of this inna. All right, so this is what. Okay, final example, min zalik al-kitabi. I'm going to not elaborate this because the only difference between this example and this example is this min. Okay, so pause the video, study this example, compare these two examples, all right, so that you can start working on things like this yourself. Okay, next point. It tells us we can determine whether it's a phrase or a sentence. Now, you need to know what is a phrase and what is a sentence. How do they differ? They differ with they differ from a very important perspective, actually. So, phrase is a collection of words that still that doesn't fulfill its meaning completely. Okay, so for example, if you say something, for example, this book, and the listener still demands some more information regarding your statement, that is a phrase. Okay, this book. Now, this book, what? Is this boring? Is it interesting? Is it too long to read? Is it what? Okay, what about the book? So this is a phrase. And what's a sentence? That's a collection of words that completes the meaning of the entire thing, okay, of the entire collection. So it's a complete sentence in itself. This is a book. You don't, the listener doesn't demand any more elaboration about this statement, okay? This is a complete sentence. This is a book. So that's what we are now going to cover, that how we can make or identify these structures or these constructions while we are reciting or reading, okay? So our first case is this book, which simply means a phrase, okay? All right. How can we identify? If the musharun ilay is coupled with al, it's a phrase. Okay, so you have your ism ishara, for example, haza. Then you have your musharun ilay, which is coupled or prefixed with al. So that means it's a phrase. Okay, so for example, hazal qalamu. What does that mean? It means this pen. Hazal salamu. What does that mean? This piece or this greeting. All right, and hazal hamdu, for example. Okay, what does that mean? This praise. Okay. All right, now this word ad-dunya, this is actually grammatically feminine, so we're going to use hazihi and not haza. All right, so hazihi dunya, this lowly world. Okay. All right, now what is this? Al-muflihuna. Do you identify any suffix over here? I hope you're saying yes, because una is actually your suffix for rafa, jama, masculine, asma. All right, well, al-muflihuna. Now, the thing is that it is Jama Salim and not Jama Mukassir. Okay, so we are going to use Jama pointer of, well, we are going to use Jama pointer very conveniently. We are going to cover this point shortly. All right, so you'll understand why I paused here. Okay, so we are going to use haulai or ulaika and not haza or anything else. Okay, so haulai al-muflihuna, for example, or ulaika al-muflihuna, those or these successful ones. Okay, now as opposed to the first case, we have our sentence now. This is a book. Now, previously, for a statement to be, or for a for a ism ishara and musharun ilayh to be a phrase, we needed the musharun ilayh to be coupled with al. If the musharun ilayh is not prefixed with al, it is simply a sentence. That is it. Okay, so haza kitabun, for example, you have your ism ishara and the musharun ilayh is not prefixed with al. Okay, so it is al less. So what do? You simply imagine a little auxiliary verb, appropriate auxiliary verb with your, or rather between your these two, between your ism ishara and musharadillah. All right, so this is a book. Haza kitabun. Now same words, but you've got a different construction now. Okay, so previously we formed phrases, now we are going to form sentences. Haza qalamun, this is a pen. Haza salamun, this is a greeting, for example, or a peace. Haza hamdun, this is a praise. Then similarly, hazihi dunya. Hazihi dunya, not hazihi dunya, because that would mean that it is a phrase. Okay, so hazihi, then dunya, because you don't want to give the illusion that it is actually coupled with this alif lam. Okay, so that's why it's hazihi dunya. This is lowly world. And then ulaika muflihuna, those are successful ones. Okay, so this was our second finer point. And here are a few examples, just two examples. Okay, so hazani kitabani. All right, the musharun ilay is al less. All right, so it is not bound, or it is not coupled or prefixed with al, so it's a sentence. And then ulaika al muflihuna, we are all familiar with this phrase. All right, it's in the opening ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah. All right, so now over there we have hum in between these two, but we are going to cover the importance of that hum in the next section, inshallah. Okay, so at the moment, just remember ulaik al-muflihuna, all of those successful ones. And since this muflihuna, the musharun ilayh here, is coupled with al, of course that means it is a phrase and not a sentence. Okay, all right, third point, singular feminine pointer for the jama mukassir. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. So these 2 points are the ones that we have literally grown up studying, well, since section A. Okay, so what do I say here? I say that jama mukassir of ghair aqil asma. Ghair aqil asma, the asma that do not possess intellect. All right, so we have grammatically classified all the creatures of Allah into 2 types, aqil or ghair aqil. Aqil are the ones that possess intellect, and ghair aqil ones are the ones that do not possess any intellect. Okay, so aqil asma has humans, jinns, and angels in them. Okay, and ghair aqil asma is everything else. Okay, so jama mukassir of asma, of ghair aqil asma, are always grammatically feminine. Okay, and jama mukassir of aqil asma can be grammatically dealt as feminine as well as masculine. Okay, so I'm going to tell you exactly, I'm going to show you some examples regarding this as well, inshallah. So, but for ease, we can simply remember that all the jama mukassir are dealt as feminine. Okay, so we are going to always use, well, almost always use singular feminine pointers for jama mukassir. Okay, I hope you remember what jama mukassir was. Okay, so in English we have 2 ways of making plurals. For example, we could either add the suffix of ies for the words that end in y, or we could simply add the suffix of oes for the words that end in o, or we simply add an s. All right, but if we want to there are some other ways of making plurals. All right, and that is something that that doesn't really follow any rule per se. And an example for that is tooth becomes teeth and not teeth, tooths. All right, that is wrong. Similarly, child becomes children and not childs. Okay, so that's what. So the words in Arabic that follow the way of making plural, similar to the child becoming children or tooth becoming teeth, is the one that is called jama mukassir. Okay, all right, so what are the pointers? What are the examples? We are going to use singular feminine pointers for jama mukassir. Our first example is tilka rusulu. All right, now this is the name of our third juz, right? And you can see that the word ar-rusulu is actually a jama mukassir, and it is on the pattern of ulun. Okay, and if you make it more of bilam, it becomes ar-rusulu. Okay, and it is the jama mukassir of the word rasulun, and of course the word rasulun is aqil. Okay, messenger, a messenger. So ar-rusulu would be the messengers. Okay, and we can see that it is mukassir. Therefore, and since it is the mukassir of an aqil ism, therefore it can be dealt as feminine as well as masculine. Therefore, we are free to use whichever pointer we use. However, here in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the feminine pointer. So, tilkar rusulu. Okay, and of course, rafa marfa, we already know this thing. Alright, so those messengers. And what would it be if it were tilka rusulun? It would have been those are messengers. Okay. Similarly, hazihi ku'usun. Now, ku'usun is the plural for the jama mukassir for glasses or goblets. Okay. So, well, of course, this is ghair aqil, and ghair aqil jama mukassir is equal to feminine. All right. So, hazihi. All right. This is our example. Okay, and now the final point, pointing at muzaf muzaf ilayh. All right, so I know that by now you guys are experts of muzaf muzaf ilayh fragment, because we have done quite a lot of examples and we have spent a lot of time on muzaf and muzaf ilayh. Okay, so for example, book of this boy. For those who haven't done this yet with me, book of boy. All right, book of the boy. Just go with boy. Okay, so here the thing that is owned is muzaf. All right, and the owner or the word that comes after of is called muzaf ilayh. All right, and if you flip it and you use it and you construct it this way, boy's book, then the word with apostrophe is called muzaf ilayh, and the one that is without apostrophe is called apostrophe s is called muzaf. All right, so these are the two constructions that I can very briefly tell you about. Okay, so what do we want to do? In the first instance, we are going to point at muzaf, and in the second one, we are going to point at muzaf ilayh. All right, so for example, this boy's book or boys this book. So here we are pointing towards this book, and here we are pointing towards the boy. Okay. All right, first case, pointing at muzaf. That means a book, for example. What do? We simply place the pointer after muzaf ilayh. That is it. Okay, so you've got your muzaf ilayh fragment. Okay, and muzaf, for example, so this is our actual fragment, rabul baiti, rub of the house. Okay, so I want to point at, for example, muzaf. All right, so what do? I place the pointer at the end, or rather after the muzaf ilayh. That's what I've done. Rabul baiti haza, this rub of the house. All right, so it's pointing towards muzaf. And if you want to point at muzaf ilayh, what you do is that you simply place it before muzaf ilayh. All right, so you've got your muzaf. Our original muzaf ilayh fragment was rabul baiti, and we want to point towards the muzaf ilayh, which here is al baiti. So what do? We simply keep our muzaf as it is, then we add ism ishara before the muzaf ilayh. All right, so it becomes Rabbu Hazal Baiti. Now, this is the construction that you might be familiar with already. In Surah Al-Quraysh, we have an ayah, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ Hazal Bait. Now, why is it Rabba Hazal Bait, and why is it here? Why is it Rabbu over here? We are going to cover that shortly. Okay, but seriously, here it is because there is no reason for it to be in any other Arabic form at this moment here in this example, but there in that ayah there is a reason for that to be in nasab. Okay, so that's what we are going to cover inshallah in the subsequent lessons inshallah. So I hope that this point is also clear. Okay, with this we can simply go back to our summary chart and check out what we have covered. All right, and feel good about ourselves. Okay. First point, Ism Ishara is always marfa. All right, we have already established it. Okay. Second thing, identical ism characteristics of musharun ilayh and the ism ishara. This is something that you can very easily observe in all of these examples. Okay, hazal waladu. Haza is your masculine wahid, near asma, near asma ishara, near ism ishara. Okay, so hazal waladu. And of course, you can also see that it's al waladu, so it means that it is your phrase, okay, and not a sentence. This boy, okay. And of course, hazanil waladani. What does this show? This is the ani sound. All right, so I'm going to leave that to you because we have already covered it. Okay, just notice how the ism characteristics are identical over here. Okay, you can pause the video and study these examples at great length, okay, if you want. Okay, and then we have the next point. When is it a phrase? It is a phrase if the musharun ilayh is prefixed with an al. So hazal kitabu, this book. Okay, zalikal kitabu, that book. Okay, and if I want to remove this al and it is simply it is a regular, not mu'arraf bil lam ism musharun ilayh, then I can very conveniently add this little auxiliary verb between the pointing noun and the musharun ilayh. Okay, so this is a book. Haza kitabun. All right, we have already done this. Next, if the musharun ilayh is jama mukassir, then we use singular feminine ishara. And examples include tilkal rusulu, tilkal qulubu. Okay. All right. Pointing. If you want to point at mudaf ilayh, what do? We point. We place the pointing noun right behind the mudaf ilayh. All right. Kitabu hazihil binti. And if you want to point towards mudaf, we place the pointing noun after the mudaf ilayh, all right, and if you see it after mudaf ilayh, it automatically means that it is pointing towards this, unless of course we match the characteristics and it is not pointing towards anything after it. Okay, so that is just something that comes up with logic. Okay, so you're going to be able to get past that, inshallah. Okay, so we are done with our summary chart. We are done with our revision of these things, that's my ishara, and we are done with the final points. Inshallah, we are going to cover the next lesson, which is going to be the last one in this section. And I hope that the concepts that I tried to convey in this lesson as well as the previous ones were clear. And if there is any query that you would want cleared, then of course you can always reach me and I'll try and simplify those queries in a even better manner, inshallah. Okay, so till the next lesson, barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al Hakim. Allah Hafiz.